The views expressed on the Nova Society are those of the panelists and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Phoenix Research Institute or any institution which any panel member is associated. Reproduction or dissemination other than for the purpose of education or information without the express written permission of the Phoenix Research Institute or Nova Society Media is strictly prohibited. We'd like to welcome everyone back to the Nova Society, and now with Brooklyn back, we're going to be taking on the topic of Elon Musk shutting down USAID. What might this mean for the United States, and what might this mean for American influence in the world? So let's listen in. So this week Elon Musk is shutting down USAID, and is basically they're putting out many agencies, the FBI, they're offering them to just leave get 8 months pay and leave. Same thing now has been announced, the CIA, and they're trying to dismantle these and put in people that think, I guess I would say, correctly. And a lot of this comes from the Elon Musk attitude of, I'm trying to make government better, and I'm trying to save the government money. And we just spoke about the fact that if the United States was to take over the Gaza Strip, the amount of money that would cost would be almost astronomical. So, I mean, what are we thinking about President Musk having all this power, and he's a non-elected official? And, again, he must be a really good business guy, but he's done it on the back of other people. I just don't see what the purpose is, but I can see where a lot of federal employees are going to be running scared. They don't know what to do.
Yeah, well, they've also apparently put the administration of the Department of Education on leave, and that means, of course, that basically that's rather like a discharge. And I know that, of course, Trump was saying all this during his campaign, and this allows whatever his spokesperson is, I forget her name, Kaylee or something like this. She's very young, 27, I think, to say, "Oh, promises made, promises kept," and to pretend that this is all wonderful. But the federal government, or any government, is not a business organization. I mean, this is not the same thing. It's ineffective what Musk is doing. One cannot simply strip federal service and the agencies that are here to serve the people of this country and pretend that this is marvelous, the way one might like to strip an organization down to its foundation, I suppose, to please stockholders and make one staff member do the work of four people. I mean, this is how when one has air traffic controllers who are trying to do the work of more than one person, you have terrible accidents. People cannot do this. Things don't work this way. And Elon Musk knows nothing about government. And obviously Trump doesn't know anything about government either, or he wouldn't be trying to impose tariffs that don't work. He should have learned this the first time around. It's dystopian.
Yeah. Scott, what do you think?
So, as I understand it, Elon Musk has floated the idea that we should do away with banks and other financial services providers and turn everything over to his social media platform, and that he can run the U.S. financial system better than anybody else can. And there was a hero involved in this. His name is David Lebrick. He was the acting head of the Treasury Department while the transition was still, getting their nominees through the Senate confirmation process. And he was forced to resign because he wouldn't turn over control of the government's tax and payment system to Trump. What David Lebrick did was he oversaw the sending out of checks and payments of bills as required by the law. He did not act improperly. He had not failed at his job. He did nothing wrong. The issue that got him fired was that he simply didn't want to give access to Musk and these young people that he's got running through everybody's financial records, access to that payment center. Now he's got it because Scott Bessent gave it to him, right? Is that legal? Probably not. Will it go to the Supreme Court? Yes, but in the meantime, he has that information. And so what we're seeing here is something that the Atlantic had written an article. There was an article in the Atlantic, rather, about how Hitler took over Germany using their constitution against them. And they're doing the same thing right now. This is, I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist or anything like that, but by the time this gets to the Supreme Court, they'll already have control of everything. And then the question is, okay, how many divisions does John Roberts have, right?
Yeah.
How is he going to enforce the ruling that he and his Supreme Court make about whether it's legal or not for something to happen that happened 3 years ago? I'm afraid that tens of millions of people who pay their taxes, use banks through direct deposit, have all these medical records, Medicare, Social Security, all of this stuff that goes through this system, their information is now owned by one Elon Musk. And I'm probably not smart enough to see the end game here, but I don't think the end game is good.
No.
I don't understand how Congress could stand there and let him do this. I don't know anything about Scott Bessent. He was sold to us as a very reasonable person, but the contempt for the law that Trump and Musk are showing should frighten every American, should anger every American. And this is just crazy stuff that we're just at the beginning of.
Yep. And there was a recent a poll on CNN that they had out about Elon Musk's approval rating. And at one point in time, it was extremely high. Back in 2016, it was like plus 29, and today it's minus 11. So that's quite a drop when you're talking about general approval rating. And as far as they also asked the question, okay, what do you think about the things that Musk is doing? 53% of respondents said they are against it. So there is no mandate here to do it. But as you say, by the time the Supreme Court gets around to it, the damage will have been done. And Elon Musk's attitude about, I can run the financial system better than anybody else because I'm the richest guy in the world, goes back to, post hoc ergo propter hoc. Because of this, therefore that. And it's not, and that is never true. The fact is that, how Elon Musk made his money was a lot different than how a government is supposed to run. And the idea that it almost harkens back to, and many of the people listening to this may not remember, H. Ross Perot, when he was running back and it was Clinton and it was Bush and it was Perot. And many blame Perot for the fact that Bush lost because he took, I think, like 16 or 18% of the vote, if I remember properly. But Ross Perot's attitude was the business of America should be business. We should run the United States like a business. And the fact is that it just simply does not work that way. There are two different dynamics. A business's main goal is to make money. A government's main goal should be protecting and caring for the citizens of which it is over. Totally two diametrically different attitudes. And the fact is that, this is what people voted in. And I think they're really beginning to see what you voted in, maybe not what you expected. The idea of the payment systems, and you're right, Scott, about They're going to know your medical records. They're going to know your Social Security. They're going to know all this information, how people are paid, all this stuff. And we are a country that, I mean, I know I get it. If there's been a breach, Bank of America just sent me something, I don't know, about a week ago. There was a breach where some of their information was out, and they had to send out the information to all of their, all the people that are depositors and work with the bank. And they sent out this notification. Well, guess what? Nobody's sending you out a notification because they're getting everybody. Not just customers of Bank of America, not just customers of Truist, not just customers of Capital One. They're getting information of every single person in the United States.
Musk is getting his money from government contracts, a lot of it. And also one of Trump's complaints about Canada is that they won't let our banks in. That's very, very interesting, since Musk is now the owner of everyone's financial information, and therefore everybody's money in this country, that Trump is angry among the many different complaints he has against Canada. One of them is that Canada will not permit American banks to come in and do business.
Oh, and the thing is the way the government is set up, and everybody should remember this, and they should remember this from the Constitution and the way government is supposed to be set up. The Congress controls the purse strings, not the president, not anybody in the president's cabinet or those made up agencies like the one that Musk is running. They do not control, and this is an overstep. This is an overstep of executive authority. There's no doubt about that. And you know what, Scott, you're right. How many divisions does John Roberts have? How is he going to enforce, especially if they gut the FBI, especially if they gut all these other agencies? Basically, you can almost look at this and say, this is pretty obvious. And anybody that thinks that, you were downtrodden in your position and Trump was going to elevate you, well, a lot of these moves are just to elevate the Elon Musks, the wealthy people of the world. And all's going to happen to the people that were downtrodden, you're going to be even more downtrodden than you were before. That's all there is to it.
Right. And here's the part about the flooding the zone thing that makes this also very difficult. As Brooke points out, Trump says the other day, Canada's very tough. Canada's, we're not treated well by Canada, and we have to be treated well. American banks are not allowed to do business in Canada. Can you believe that? Well, no, you can't believe that because it's not true. There have been U.S. banks in Canada for 100 years. And right now, according to the Canadian Bankers Association, there are 16 U.S. bank subsidiaries and branches with about 113 billion in Canadian dollars running around Canada, and U.S. banks make up about half of all foreign bank assets in Canada. So it's not even true what they're saying when they talk about USAID being a communist organization or some nonsense like that. These are ridiculous charges, and it has to be up to us, not us three, you all out there, to go out and find the truth and to check these guys, because they say a lot of crap that's simply not true. It's a ridiculous idea. The USAID is a really important part, a tiny expenditure comparatively, but really good soft power, and keeps people happy about the United States and happy in general, if possible. And the idea that it's somehow Marxist or communist is just crazy stuff. It's important to have happy allies. Everybody understands the McDonald's theory, right? But nobody seems to understand that if you pay a little bit of money for disaster relief in other countries, for poverty relief, for technical assistance and promoting economic and social development, then you're saving millions of lives over the past 65 years and training generations of local leaders to help themselves and their country. then you're really doing a great job for the world. And you're going to get paid back in terms of alliances or, let's say, bases if you need them, or any number of other things that you get. Just not having people join your enemies against you in war would be a really important one that has, over the
Yep.
centuries, has proven to be decisive in a lot of cases.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think it's really important that everybody sort of like hear what they have to say. Okay, we can't not hear it, and then go check it out. And it's not that hard to do.
Nope.
So I have point. We have, well, 2 points. We have no budget. We, in the United States, we have no budget for the government, which is due in March. And where are the House Republicans and Speaker Mike Johnson and all this? It's like he's fallen off the edge of the supposedly flat Earth. I mean, I have not seen hide nor hair of him, unless I'm missing something, maybe because, the rest of everything else is taking up so much of the news. But they're supposed to be separate but equal. I don't see them doing anything. Stop any of this.
No.
I
Well,
mean,
they're
I guess,
for it.
what's this, up to the court to stop it?
Well, that's
the
what
And
we're
then, as you
hoping.
say,
For at least for 2 years,
Yep.
and hope that you can gain back some footholds in Congress and in the Senate, to be able to oppose them legislatively. But
and then if Greg Palast, I don't know how you say his last name, the investigative journalist, if he's correct, and all the dropping of people who would have voted Democrat and voted for Harris, and actually Harris would have won the election, if that type of Republican purging of the voter rolls continues into 2026, then in fact, it may not be the fact that Democrats stay home. It may be the fact that Democrats go out and find that they're not registered to vote anymore and they can't vote.
right.
Well,
So look, one of my problems with 2020 was that Trump was the president at the time, and he had controlled all the government, and the idea that somehow the government turned on him and threw the election to Biden, who at that time was portrayed as being in his basement, cowering because he was afraid to get sick and all that kind of stuff. The same thing applies now. If there were irregularities, if there were problems with this election, we would have, I believe, heard about it by now. And, Greg Palast, or whatever his name is, all due respect to, what were the moves that were taken legal?
But not if there were Republican registrars or people who were in charge of at the state level, and people and the voter, like in Georgia, with challenges, and anybody could challenge anything, and people were removed who were legal voters, with the view, well, we're just, we're clearing out people who have died and illegal people and this, that, and the other thing, and others just happened to be swept along with it. And then people, I don't know if it was ProPublica, it might have been Axios, one of the independent news organizations got in touch went down the list of like 1,600 people and picked out 100 in Virginia, I think, and got in touch with them and said, do you know that you're not registered to vote? And they were completely shocked, because they had been registered to vote, and they were living people who had been registered to vote, and they did not know that they had been removed from the rolls incorrectly.
Well, obviously they didn't vote, number one, because if they did, they would have learned it. So these were people that sat home. And I will say this to I agree with Scott in that sense. With all due respect to Greg Palast, give me something more than just supposition. Give me something
He has a film
more.
where he interviewed people. Sorry, I haven't watched it, but he does have a film where he interviewed people.
Okay, you've interviewed people. This is a country of 330 million people. I mean, and the fact is that, when you say, well, they were shocked to find they were taken off of the rolls. Well, obviously they weren't shocked at the poll. Because if they were taken off the rolls and they went to the poll, they would have found out that they were ineligible to vote. I could see them being shocked. Well, we're talking about people that were sitting home from the election anyway, because they weren't told when they went to the poll. So therefore, they're a non-factor in the election anyway. And again, it's easy to come out and make all of these these journalists and these okay, give us something solid, not just an interview with Joe Bob down the street. Show us numbers. It's like when Rudy Giuliani said 5,000 dead people voted in Georgia. Show me. Don't just tell me about it. Don't just say, well, he said and she said. No, show me that this has actually happened before I'm going to start getting worked up about any of this. Because the fact is that so far, nobody's come up with any solid proof, which is the exact same criticism that we have of Trump. He makes claims. He has no proof. He has nothing. Everybody says so. Well, you know what? The other side is doing the same thing too. You got something, show it. Show the receipts. If you can't do that, then as far as I'm concerned, you're just QAnon on the left. And there's both. QAnon on the right, QAnon on the left. And the fact is that, no, I'm sorry, show me the receipts. That's investigative journalism. That's what got Nixon caught during Watergate. Real journalism, where they checked the sources, where they had the proof, where they had all the evidence. So far, people just talk about it. Nobody says any evidence of any of this. And I guess that's my issue with the whole thing is, I really think that's the strategy. As long as we chase our tails for all of these things that maybe exist, maybe don't exist, who knows, we ignore what's actually going on. That's a Trump strategy. I'm going to tell you, oh, look over there, squirrel. And I want you to look at the squirrel so you ignore the fact of what I'm doing to your rights as an American citizen. And same thing all the way around.
Yeah.
Well, presumably then we, the American voters, can vote in a different Congress in 2026.
Exactly. And I will also say, with one of the things that Scott was talking about before about this, the money that's being saved from USAID, if anybody out there thinks that that's going to go back into the pockets of the American people, you're really, I don't know what alternate universe you're living in, but it's not. That is not going to come back. You're not going to get a check in the mail for what they're saving out of this. And so, no, this idea that, oh, yeah, this is good for America, no, it's not. And Scott's exactly right. Soft power really goes a long way. And we should never forget that. Yeah. All right. That's
by the way, Brooklyn, just one last thing before we go. Brooklyn mentioned ProPublica. Yes. Everybody should be checking in with ProPublica every day, or at least once a week or so, because ProPublica really does a great job of investigating, and I think it's a really important resource for us to keep the Trump people as honest as we could possibly keep them.
You can subscribe to their free email newsletter, which I get. And they have stories, different journalists, investigative journalists who cover different areas, extremely informative.
Even if it comes out of ProPublica, check it. Check everything. Become informed. I remember back, in 2016, what was the big one that they had, that the right had? Veritas. Oh, they have all the information. They have the documents. They have this. They had that. Turned out to be 3 guys in a basement. But they were they were the experts. They were the solid news media.
People can check out something called Ground News. I don't know how much it costs. It's subscription, and they apparently they provide a comprehensive overview of different news sources and the different stories, and show the different headlines and how these different sources cover each story, including by headline. And they will provide, which leans left, which leans right, and provide I believe, an accuracy rating as well. So that may be helpful for people who can afford the subscription.
It's a lot better than just Googling it.
Yes.
Or getting your information off of X or Twitter or whatever it's called. The Nova Society is a production of Nova Society Media, a division of the Phoenix Research Institute. We'd like to thank our production partners, Buzzsprout, who hosts the Nova Society, Audacity, our editing partners, Apple iTunes, the largest source of podcasts and music on the internet, Spotify, the most popular platform for the Nova Society, and iHeartRadio, your source for all things music and podcasting. The Nova Society is available on all of these and other quality platforms listed in our description. We'd also like to thank all of our listeners. Without your support, the Nova Society would not be possible. If you have a question or a comment, we can be reached at nova.society.podcast@gmail.com. So for Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, Dr. Priscilla Hobbs, Dr. Scott Gershwer, and all of us here at the Nova Society, I'm Dr. Mark Bound. Remember, the true power in society is knowledge. Thanks for listening, and we will see you again next time. We'd like to thank our sponsor for this episode, the Journal of Interdisciplinary Conflict Science. The JCIS is an open journal for upcoming scholars. The JCIS is currently accepting article submissions on an ongoing basis. JCIS is a publication of Nova Works, a scholarly repository at Nova Southeastern University. A link to the journal is in our description.